Edward, can you give us a sense of what Hong Kong's economy looks like next year under the double whammy of the US-China trade war and ongoing protests?
Yeah, we are bad, but that's not the end of the world. Although, one may say that we are not yet out of the woods. But I can see there's two cycles hitting us, one US-China trade war and the second one, our own social unrest. One is easing, at least, as we read from the news. Well, US-China sitting down and prospect of signing something. But the local unrest, I think we need to tackle it by ourselves, the Hong Kong community, government, and also the wider community. So, but in terms of figures, of course, there's 3% knockoff from US-China trade war, another roughly 3% from local unrest. It's not going to go away immediately. So we will need to struggle through. So I would anticipate things will still be a bit sort of gloomy in the turn of the year. And let's see how things would.
Bernard, what's your take?
Well, I think obviously after this 6 months unrest, it's quite clear that we have a structural issues we need to address in Hong Kong. I mean, these so-called deep-rooted issues that was not dealt with in the past: income disparity, housing affordability, and so on. Things that it's quite common in other cities adopting the capitalist model. So that's the issues that is ongoing that we need to address. And of course, apart from that, in Hong Kong, we also have the issues with the integration with China. When I say integration, we're referring to economic and social integration. We have no political integration because of the two systems. But how do we deal with these conflicts arising for the integrations? Something that the government needs to continue to work on.
I see. So Hong Kong went through doom and gloom in 2003 when SARS happened. So Edward, do you think next year will be as serious in terms of layoffs and businesses closing?
Unlike SARS, where by WHO standard, 21 days after no new case being found, Hong Kong is out of the epidemic. In the kind of local situation, and when looking around the world, like Paris, that there may still be a lot of sporadic sort of event. So I don't think we would have a single day saying that we will declare peace and order. I think we have to accept, we have to live with certain sort of disturbances. But it also reminds us that, how important it is for the community as a whole to decide whether and how to sort of move on and sort of ride out of the storm. I believe that, during this period of time, people are sort of struggling between two issues. One is the bigger picture that, the global economy does not look as good as the stock market represents. Because when we look at the wider world, a lot of places are still sort of struggling with all these trade conflicts, and it's likely to sort of spread. On the other hand, we will not be helping ourselves if the social unrest in Hong Kong continues. And I think the better indicator would be watching about the unemployment figures. If job loss sort of enlarge, and I think the suffering will be greater.
Would that be getting worse?
It's hard to say because, there is always a time lag in terms of certain figures. Currently, we are having overall sort of unemployment rate hitting at 3.2, the most recent figures. That, by Hong Kong standard, in a decade basis, not too high, but the trend is picking up. I think there is a lagging behind, so I would foresee that an unemployment rate picking up. And also, if you read the small print in certain sectors like retail, like tourism related, is about 5 or about 6, which is the one of the lower figure in the last 5 to 8 years.
Right. Do you agree, Bernard?
Yeah, I think short term, I think we definitely need to embrace with uncertainties. Apart from the trade war between China and the US, we also have a number of elections coming. Next month, you have Taiwan election and so on. So I think Hong Kong is caught in this crossfire with geopolitics. I certainly see that we are the collateral damage in this way. So it's very complex. So we have a domestic issue coupled with a lot of other moving pieces going on. So I think for sure 2020 will be full of uncertainty. But then at the same time, though, comes as uncertainty, there's opportunities too. So I noticed that there are people still looking at Hong Kong. I know some are probably taking a step back right now, but there are those who I see definitely from the ASEAN. You know, my family is very rooted in ASEAN. I see that a lot of people are interested because they are so used to these ups and downs themselves. So they see that, okay, you have some downtime, but it's also a time to come in.
Right. Can you elaborate more on how Hong Kong can ride out the storm?
Well, first of all, we should not just look at Hong Kong as Hong Kong. You know, Hong Kong is still very much part of the Greater Bay Area of China and so on. So when you look at the ASEANs, they're interested to work with Hong Kong, again, together with the Greater Bay Area concept and the China concept. And I think Hong Kong continue to serve that role as well. So we should not just, I think problem is we being in Hong Kong, we tend to look at Hong Kong just from within. But, you know, again, you know, in terms of global trade, investment, it's beyond that. It's the regional thing. So I think while we have to deal with our own Hong Kong matters, but we need to continue to serve that purpose, which we are continue to be that gateway for Chinese company to go abroad, you know, or as well through the Greater Bay Area. I think, you know, those are still needed, whether we have our own problem to address or not. So I think we should not lose focus on serving, you know, that regional role and also as a financial center.
So CM, what do you think?
Echoing what Edward and Bernard said, from my legal profession, things has been slow. For example, last week I met a client from China who wants to do something in Hong Kong. They said, by the way, shall I come to Hong Kong? Is it safe for me to come to Hong Kong? I will have to explain to him, yes, it's perfectly safe. But in the end, he decided to postpone his trip. So that's one example. So things been slow last year, and it will be slow for the next 12 months, I would say. But on the other hand, I always said that this is actually the best opportunity to sell Hong Kong. We tell the world that we are under some challenges, but even under these challenges, rule of law in Hong Kong is still robust. Still come to Hong Kong, we still do business as usual. So I would argue that this is actually the best chance to sell Hong Kong.
Right. So with all of your recent visit with Chief Executive Carrie Lam in Thailand, is Hong Kong desperate to tap into new markets across Southeast Asia, Edward?
I think your description sounds like we were now sort of awakening to ASEAN. No. Actually, I think Hong Kong ASEAN relations goes a long way. I think Bernie can tell from his personal business, also family network. But actually, I think we went to ASEAN as a continuation of our effort to bring us much closer to this very strong ally. Now, search number 2 in our external trade relations. They have surpassed US, EU. They only come second with Hong Kong. And secondly, I think, they're much closer tie on more formal basis. You recall that, year before last, we signed the free trade agreement and investment protection and promotion agreement with ASEAN as a group. And it's now being implemented. So that opens up a more certain environment. But I think some of the comments I received in the common journey that we went on 3 weeks ago was, we bumped into people who said, they said, I was in Hong Kong last month, or somebody recalled, I was there when, certain things happened. And they were also saying, I'll be going back to Hong Kong next week. Now that's a common sort of opening remarks that for businessmen we are talking with. And I often, perhaps 2 newly discovered story I pick up from this trip together with Bernie and also CM, both to Malaysia and Thailand. The Thailand, we often think that, we are the biggest investor in Thailand. But the latest figure in my preparation for the trip is direct investment from Thailand to Hong Kong. It's actually 3 times more than Hong Kong going to Thailand. What does it mean? In the old days, we are the big buyer of Thai rice. We buy the best share of premium fragrant rice. But nowadays, it's their investment coming to Hong Kong for asset management, for services. So you see the different changes.
CM?
Hong Kong is a service center. We from the service industry, we serve the investors from Hong Kong, also foreign investors into Hong Kong or into China. So like Edward said, even though there's a deal, apparently with no apparent connection with Hong Kong, the Hong Kong services industry can still play a role. For example, we can help them structure a deal, put together Hong Kong companies as holding companies, do the business through Hong Kong. That will bring the business from outside of Hong Kong into Hong Kong and also help mainland Chinese investors going out through Hong Kong. And the trip to Thailand and Malaysia did exactly that, allowing us to go out with the merchants, manufacturers to sell Hong Kong as a team and not silo. For us as lawyers or accountants, if we go out and sell our services, it will be difficult. But if we go out as a whole team selling Hong Kong as a Hong Kong Inc., I don't know whether it's politically correct to say that, but in any event, that's the best way to promote Hong Kong.
Thank you very much for your time today.